Hey guys, Fletch the Football Observer here, and today's video is going to be the return of the Premier League review show. With the return of the Premier League preview show a few days ago comes the return of the Premier League review show today, in which I review the games that have occurred from the latest round of fixtures from the Premier League. The Premier League kicked off this past weekend with some intriguing clashes and plenty of goals. So with that being said, let's get straight into the review. We're going to begin with last season's Champions League winners and Premier League runners-up Liverpool, who got off to the perfect start by beating Norwich 4-1 in their opening game. Norwich got off to the poor start when Grant Hanley's slice clearance found its way into the back of his own net. The Reds then doubled their lead through Mohamed Salah's slotted finish before Virgil van Dijk headed home their third. Divock Origi then headed home a Trent Alexander-Arnold cross to make it 4, all within the first half. But midway through the second half, Teemu Pukki grabbed a goal back for the Canaries, but it later proved to be nothing more than a consolation for the newly promoted side. It was a good win for Liverpool this, but there were defensive issues that needed to be addressed. Norwich got in behind the Liverpool defence on multiple occasions, but lacked a killer instinct when it was in front of goal. Also, another issue for the Reds that they encountered is the injury to goalkeeper Alisson, which saw the Brazilian hobble off during the first half. Hopefully it's not too serious though. The Reds now turn their attention to their Super Cup final against Chelsea on Wednesday before travelling to Southampton for their Premier League game against the Saints on Saturday, whilst Norwich will be facing Newcastle on the same day. Our next game on this list saw the defending Premier League champions Manchester City get their title defence off to the perfect start with a 5-0 victory over West Ham. Gabriel Jesus got the ball rolling for the away side before Raheem Sterling doubled City's lead in the second half. Jesus thought he had got his second in the afternoon, but the goal was ruled out by a marginal offside call thanks to VAR. But later on, City did in fact get their third goal through Raheem Sterling, getting his second of the afternoon with a nice lobbed finish over West Ham goalkeeper Lucas Fabianski. Sergio Aguero came off the bench to score from the penalty spot, although that was at the second time of asking after his original penalty was saved. But when reviewed, it was seen that Fabianski didn't stay on his goal line when the spot kick was being taken. Sterling rounded off the afternoon by scoring his hat-trick with a fine finish. Clearly a great win for City. They got their season off to the perfect start. It wasn't all smooth sailing. There were still a few mistakes that the City players were making, and Ederson did have to pull off a brilliant double save in the second half, but they got the job done against the West Ham side, who played well until they got to the final third, but in the end City were too strong and too ruthless and tore them apart as the game wore on. West Ham will now be looking ahead to their next game against Brighton next weekend in search of their first points of the season, while City will face a big test when they entertain Tottenham at the Etihad next Saturday evening. On to the next game, and life as Chelsea manager didn't get off to the best of starts for Frank Lampard as he saw his Chelsea side lose 4-0 to Manchester United. Marcus Rashford got the ball rolling for United after he converted from the penalty spot after Kurt Zouma fouled the England striker in the penalty area. Anthony Martial scored United's second in the second half from close range, and then seconds later Rashford added his second and United's third of the afternoon before substitute and debutant Daniel James scored United's fourth goal of the game with a deflected effort. Not the start at all that Frank Lampard was hoping for. United weren't amazing by any means. I do believe the scoreline slightly flattered them a little, but they were clinical in taking their chances. Chelsea made defensive errors which led to them conceding goals, and up front they were just toothless in attack and lacked a cutting edge in the final third at times. Chelsea now turn their attention to the Super Cup final against Liverpool on Wednesday before facing Leicester on Sunday, whilst Manchester United will be facing Wolves in their next game next Monday. For our next game, we're going to be focusing on Sheffield United's return to the Premier League, and their return resulted in them taking a point late on in the day against Bournemouth, and it's a club legend who got the equalising goal. Chris Mepham drew first blood for the Cherries shortly after the hour mark, but it was none other than Billy Sharp who saved the day for Sheffield United, rescuing a point from the jaws of defeat by bundling the ball home from close range to give the Blades their first point of the new season. I'm happy to see a team like Sheffield United in the Premier League this season, and even happier for a guy like Billy Sharp to get their first goal, and a goal that earned them a point. A storied career full of ups and downs, and I for one am happy for him. As for Bournemouth, they'll be kicking themselves for not holding on to the 3 points or even further extending their lead. But for now, Aston Villa are up next for the Cherries, while Sheffield United face Crystal Palace next weekend. For our next game, an Ashley Barnes brace and a goal by Johan Gudmundsson helped Burnley to a 3-0 opening day victory against Southampton at Turf Moor. Burnley thought they had taken the lead in the first half when Ashley Barnes pounced on a slip by a Saints defender. The striker went on to square the ball across the face of goal for Chris Wood to tap home. However, VAR ruled out the goal for offside against Barnes. Barnes, however, would go on to break the deadlock in the second half, capitalising on another mistake by a Saints defender before striking the ball home. He then doubled Burnley's lead shortly after, firing home his and Burnley's second of the game before Gudmundsson curled home the Clarets' third goal to fully make sure Burnley secured all 3 points. A superb win for Burnley here. I didn't really expect a Burnley win. I didn't even really expect the result to be this big, but there you go. It's a poor result for Southampton on the flip side, who now turn their attention to the next game, which is against Liverpool next weekend, whilst Burnley will be looking to make it back-to-back wins, but find that the club standing in their way of doing that is none other than Arsenal. Our next game was one of the less eventful ones of the weekend, as a goalless stalemate played out at Selhurst Park, as Crystal Palace and Everton had to settle for a point apiece. Everton were rather wasteful in front of goal, whilst Crystal Palace couldn't get past Jordan Pickford in the Toffees goal. And with 15 minutes or so to go, Morgan Schneidlin was sent off for Everton after a second bookable offence. But despite being down to 10 men, Everton managed to hold on for the point. Not the ideal start either side would have wanted. The Toffees are clearly looking to progress and aim for a possible top 6 spot this season, and if they are to do so, this is the kind of game that they need to be winning. They will have to settle for a point for now though, and will now turn their attention to their next home game, which is against Watford next Saturday. As for Palace, they'll be looking to pick up their first win of the season when they face Sheffield United next weekend. For our next game, we go to Brighton, and their new era under Graham Potter began with a huge victory over Watford at Vicarage Road. The Seagulls went ahead just before the half-hour mark when Abdoulaye Doucouré's attempted block on Pascal Gross's cross was turned into his own net. Brighton doubled their lead in the second half through substitute Florent Andone, who scored within seconds of coming on from the substitutes bench. Talk about instant impact. Brighton went on to put the game beyond all doubt by scoring a third goal through Neil Maupay, who rounded Ben Foster and coolly found the back of the net. This was a big win for Brighton. They get their new league campaign and new era underway in the best possible way, and this will give them a bit more confidence going forward and will look to add more points to their tally, especially next weekend when they face West Ham. As for Watford, a terrible start for them, a day to forget for them, but they will be looking to bounce back from this when they face Everton next weekend. Our next game saw a second half comeback by Spurs that had ruined Aston Villa's return to the top flight division, and they have Harry Kane and their new signing Tanguy Ndombele to thank. Things began well for the newly promoted side when John McGinn broke the deadlock inside 10 minutes with a fine finish. Villa held their lead until the 73rd minute when Lucas Moura teed up Ndombele, whose long-range effort found the back of the net. An amazing way to introduce yourself to the Tottenham faithful on your debut. Harry Kane then put Spurs ahead with 5 minutes or so remaining before securing the points later on for the home side with a well-placed strike. A great comeback by Spurs, a team that obviously weren't at the races for the majority of this game, but it was a fantastic comeback nonetheless, and of course it was a great introduction by their new star signing in Ndombele. And of course, Harry Kane is back among the goals very early on in the season, so all in all, it was a very, very good evening for Maurizio Pochettino's side. As for Villa, an hour or so of good football and decent defending, frustrating Spurs at times, but the quality of Spurs eventually rose to the occasion. but I'm sure that they'll be a little bit annoyed that they couldn't at least hang on and gain something from the game. In their next game though, Tottenham face a real test when they face Manchester City next Saturday evening, whilst Aston Villa will be looking to bounce back when they face Bournemouth next week. For our next game, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was the difference maker as Arsenal took all 3 points on the opening day of their season against the Newcastle side, who began a new era under the management of Steve Bruce. It took Arsenal a while, but eventually, just before the hour mark, Ainsley Maitland-Niles found Aubameyang in the penalty area, and the striker's cool and clever finish put the Gunners 1-0 up. A goal which later proved to be the decisive factor in this game. Wasn't the best of performances by Arsenal, but they got the job done nonetheless. It was nice to see a few of the youngsters coming through as well, and Joe Willock and Reece Nelson, as well as seeing cameo appearances from debutants such as the likes of Dani Ceballos, Gabriel Martinelli, and of course Nicolas Pepe, so expect to see more of them in the near future. But a win away from home and a clean sheet is the perfect start for Unai Emery and Arsenal. As for Newcastle, they got problems on and off the pitch, and I fear for them this year. I really do. I really feel like they could go down. But for now, the Magpies will look ahead to their next fixture where they face Norwich, whilst Arsenal will face Burnley next Saturday. And finally, VAR was in the spotlight again at the King Power Stadium for Leicester City's game against Wolves, as both sides had to settle for a point apiece after a goalless draw was played out between the two clubs. Shortly after the restart, Leander Dendoncker thought he had put Wolves ahead, but after consulting with VAR, it was revealed that Willy Bolly had unintentionally handled the ball in the build-up to the goal, and under the new rules, any kind of handball that occurs in the build-up to a goal is instantly ruled out. Both sides had chances to win the game, but were not clinical enough in front of goal, and in the end, both sides were forced to share the spoils. It's not the ideal start either side would have wanted, and it is a little harsh on Wolves for the disallowed goal, but it was the right call in the end by the referee. I feel both sides will be respected rivals in their goal for challenging for Europa League places, and it will be interesting to see if both sides can put together a campaign that will indeed challenge for those places. As for now though, Wolves' next game is against Manchester United on Monday night, whilst the Foxes will be facing Frank Lampard's Chelsea on Sunday. And that wraps up the first Premier League review show of the new season. Let me know guys in the comment section below what you thought of the games, who were you supporting, what did you make of some of the key talking points from the weekend, whether it was some of the goals or maybe it was VAR. I'd love to read your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Otherwise guys, hit that like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things will be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch the Football Observer. This has been another Premier League review show, and I will see and speak with you all again soon in another video.